And I think we have to contextualize what's happening in Memphis with what we have been seeing. Is that this administration, the Trump administration, is literally militarizing our city. And they're doing it under this like false guise of safety for our people. But what they're really doing is just terrorizing Black and brown folks.
In this edition of The Color Between the Lines, we're talking about how across the country community leaders are sounding the alarm about the Tennessee governor's plan to send the National Guard into Memphis. One of those voices is Alexis Anderson Reed, president of State Voices. She leads the largest progressive civic engagement network in the nation, connected to organizations that fight every day for Black and brown communities. I spoke with her about what these actions mean and why she says they represent more than just a local issue. Now let's listen in. I know that you have a national reach. Do you know what's happening, though, on the ground in Memphis and how it's feeling there at all?
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is Memphis holds a special place in my heart. My people are from Memphis. My grandmother was born in Memphis. My great great grandparents were born in Memphis. My father was born in Memphis. And so Memphis is home for me. And where, when we do our family reunions in the summers is back home to Memphis. And so what is happening there is devastating. It makes me angry and sad. And I think we have to contextualize what's happening in Memphis with what we have been seeing. Is that this administration, the Trump administration, is literally militarizing our city. And they're doing it under this like false guise of safety for our people. But what they're really doing is just terrorizing Black and brown folks and terrorizing immigrants. And so the deployment of the National Guard, right,
Yeah.
in heavily Black and brown cities is an overreach of power. And it is endangering, intimidating more than it's addressing so called public safety. And, we first saw this in LA, right, with the ICE raids and the terrorizing of immigrant families, of folks who were just simply trying to get to work, run errands, picking their, kids up from school. And then we've seen this
Right.
escalation in real time. Um, we've seen it in social media. I've seen it on the streets. I currently live in the DMV area, so I've seen it on the front lines in DC. And now we're seeing this escalation in Memphis. And my concern is that this is being normalized in some ways, and is just creating more like these harmful stereotypes of majority Black and brown cities, and ignoring what's actually really happening and ignoring the real data is that crime actually has declined in most categories over the last year and like for over decades. And Memphis specifically, the crime rate is at a historic 25-year low. And, you know, while less than 3% of folks in Memphis commit crime, what's happening with the National Guard troops is impacting 100% of the residents in Memphis. And so I've been talking with folks on the ground there and had the opportunity to both talk with folks at our table, um, as well as folks who are part of different Shelby County voter alliances. And folks are definitely intimidated and feeling like what can we do together? But at the same time, even though there is intimidation and that there is fear and these tactics are seeking to do that, there's also a feeling of like, how do we fight back? And
And that was my
so,
next question.
yeah, okay, good,
How
good.
does
Let's
how did
go
they
there.
find?
Let's go there.
I'm wondering because honestly, when you look at what Chicago did,
Yes,
Illinois, but Illinois had a governor which said, "No, I don't want you here," and the city said no. You have a different dynamic in Memphis where you have the governor is saying yes, but the people and the cities and the counties are saying no. How does that mesh and where does that work as far as empowerment for those who are on the ground?
yes, that is. Um, the bottom line is there's power in the people. And when we stand together and stand in community and protect each other, that's where we have to like live from that place. Because so many of the elected officials who are in office or leaders, unfortunately, are instead representing billionaires and MAGA interests and not representing the people. So I think that's the first place to start. I think also there are a lot of different resources from folks like the ACLU to the Immigrant Legal Resource Center, where people can plug into and help them inform their rights, know how to protect themselves, know how to protect their families. And, you know, something I've really been thinking about is like, how can we learn from LA and DC on how to organize and proactively resist? And so I'm in talking with folks who, who did organize in these cities. And if a place to look is like Free DC, and the Black women who are on the front lines of DC organizing a multiracial resistance that's still happening should be studied and learned from. So how can we have folks from DC, from LA, go to Memphis and help organize and work with residents there on in real time, like how to fight back? And so that's something I'm working on. And then thinking about how we preemptively go to places like Baltimore and Birmingham, where we think those are going to be the next targets, so that we can like train folks in real time, organize communities ahead of time, and really protect each other.
Can you talk a little bit about the recommended actions that you are training people on the ground with? Maybe just a few. Maybe you can't give us a whole, master class, but perhaps some of the things that you are telling people that kind of give them power versus them feeling disempowered.
Yep. So knowing your rights is really, really important right now. Also having like scenario and action plans for if something does happen to you or a family member, that you already, either have a legal number, able to call the ACLU, like being able to protect yourself and your safety in the moment, but then also be able to um, know what to do in like real time. We're also thinking ahead around, you know, what it will take to have a mass resistance effort in this country. And so training people on organizing and knowing how to organize in their communities, their neighbors, their churches, and also what it's going to take for nonviolent direct action. And I want to just, if it's okay, take a moment to talk a bit about like this moment that we're finding ourselves in.
Yeah.
Um, we have been studying, along with a number of other organizations that we work with, how to stop authoritarianism from taking over. And the way that we've been learning is through other countries who have been in similar situations, right? And we've been learning about, okay, how do we stop it? And then also, if we are able to stop it, how we build a pro democracy agenda with new systems and new values for our country. And I don't want to like scare us, but I also want us to get real about what time it is. It isn't if we are able to stop it. It's what we're learning is it will take about 4% of the population in the United States, that's around 14 million people, to be in sustained resistance through nonviolent direct action in order to stop the consolidation of power. So that's one point to keep in mind. The second point is our timeline is really short. What we've learned is in most authoritarian takeovers, it takes about 18 months, right? Where you have to stop this consolidation of power before you are living with authoritarianism for a decade or a generation. So we have about 12 months left in that timeline. So we have to be really, really focused right now. Our lives depend on it.
Hey, if conversations like this are resonating with you, please, I'd love your support. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button. It helps me bring more stories and voices that matter to you. And as a bonus, if you tap that button right now, you'll be the first to know when those new episodes drop. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to the conversation.
Our country depends on it. And so, like, what can people do right now? Get involved, be in a community to organize and protect each other. Educate yourself. This is not the time to like isolate and put your head in the sand. I know sometimes, you want to just turn everything off, but that's okay. You have to take care of yourself too. But also know what's happening in real time and plug in with organizations who are doing this work. And most importantly is like knowing that we are here in this moment for a reason. Our ancestors have given us so many of the tools and legacies of fighting for us to be here. And we are going to have to do the same for our lives right now and for future generations to come.
Mm. You said a lot there. And for somebody who maybe, let's say they can't march, they got 3 kids,
Yeah.
they got a job, they got 2 jobs to handle everything. But they do have a phone, they do have computers, they do have social media. Are they able
Yep.
to help in any way too? What would you say to
Yes.
them?
Yes. 100%. Everyone has a role in the movement. Everyone can give something. And so whether that is educating and just having, even right now, having conversations just with your family members, with your church groups at the barbershop, wherever that may be in your small community, that's where it starts, where people have trust to talk about what time it is, right? And to talk about like, do we have a plan to protect each other? Like that's one place to start. Another thing that folks can do is attend a community meeting, or being able to even give $5 a month to something that you really believe in. Also being able to pick up the phone and really put pressure on our elected representatives, both at the national, so the federal level, the state level, and local level. They represent us, not the other way around. And so call them, harass them, call them every day and tell them what you need and what's not working for you and your people. And then lastly, I would just say like, people want to feel connected to each other. I feel like everyone, um, it feels very isolated in so many ways. And social media is great, but in-person connectivity and community is even better. And so being able to do things like get to know a neighbor that you might not know, host something at your house. My husband and I were just talking, like we moved into a new neighborhood recently. We don't know everybody. I think like this winter we're gonna like host something where we invite everybody in the neighborhood together just to hang out outside for like a couple hours, just to get to know each other. And so those are small ways that will can add up to bigger things, that I encourage people to be a part of. And the last thing I'll say is know when elections are happening.
Yeah.
um, we have a lot of elections coming up this November, um, both at the state level, but a lot at the local level. And then next year in the midterms in 2026, it's the congressional elections, and there's a lot of statewide elections. So gubernatorial elections, mayoral elections, and primaries are happening this spring. So know when your elections are, and especially for Black folks, what I have seen is that we are great about voting in like the federal elections, but then there's huge drop off in local elections. And the local elections is where we feel so much impact. That's where we're hiring DAs and sheriff races and folks who are sitting on our school boards, right? And so get out and vote in those elections. And even if you say, okay, I'm going to vote and learn about this election. Maybe I never voted in my local election before, and I'm going to take 10 friends with me. So those are all different things that you can do right now to get involved and also like support what's needed to happen right now to like protect ourselves and protect our
Can
community.
you talk about how your organization is doing that in not just Memphis, but other cities?
Yes. So mass resistance and protest and being out in community is really, really important. And, you know, I hear a lot of people say, like, why does protest matter? Um, it matters for a number of reasons. One, it's visibility. It's people coming together and saying, this is not okay, and this is what we're fighting for. But even more importantly, it is an organizing opportunity for, like you said, teaching, where we can be talking to people and educating people and getting people plugged in to what's happening after and giving people the information, right? And so our goal is we want to have 10 million conversations between now and September in cities across the country. And so we're going to be in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Alabama, Kentucky, Nevada, all across the country, having these conversations with folks, not only to educate, but also to talk to people about what they want to see. They have, the Trump administration and MAGA has Project 2025, right? We need to build Project 2029. But we can only do that if we are organized and if we're talking to each other about what's the most important for our people, for Black folks right now.
Well, I appreciate all of your time. I just want to clarify. I think you said from now until September. We are in September. So do you mean now
Oh,
until
September 2026. Yeah, for the next year. Yep.
All right, until next year, September.
I
So
know
you've
it's
been
going to come
working
up quick.
hard, yeah, but it's
Yes.
going to go fast, and that's really important. My shout out and thanks to Alexis Anderson Reed for joining me. You can learn more about State Voices and their work at statevoices.org.